Good morning everyone. Today we discuss role of biodiversity and conservation of biodiversity. Why we conserve biodiversity? Reason is the biodiversity. Biodiversity means diversity, variation. Bio means living organ. So living organ, different types of plants and animal species. We feed on different types of plant species, animals. So we utilize biodiversity as a food and medication. Similarly, industrial products. So they play a role in our daily day-to-day activities. So why we conserve biodiversity? Reason is the biodiversity play a role in the environment. So now we discuss the role of biodiversity. So why we conserve? Because the biodiversity, we utilize the biodiversity. So narrowly utilitarian argument. Here, why we protect the biodiversity? We utilize plant and animals as a food. We utilize the industrial products, medicine, and the biodiversity also play some environmental role. That's why we should conserve the biodiversity. For our convenience, we can study the conservation of biodiversity under three subheads. Narrowly utilitarian argument. Narrowly utilitarian argument. We utilize cereals, pulses, fruits, and some animals as a food, chicken. Similarly, goat, sheep, mutton, eggs, and several animals as a food. Similarly, 25% of plant species are used to prepare or manufacturing the medicines. For example, quinine is extracted from Cinchona officinalis. Cinchona officinalis. So quinine is extracted from the bark of Cinchona officinalis, and quinine is used in the treatment of malaria. Next point is digitalin. Digitalin is extracted from foxglove plant. And used in the cardiac problems. Similarly, vinblastin and vincristin. Vinblastin and vincristin extracted from Vinca rosea. Vinblastin and vincristin are extracted from Vinca rosea. It is a anti-cancerous drug. Similarly, Taxol, Taxus. Taxol is also used in the treatment of cancer. It is extracted from plant Taxus. Similarly, from Rauwolfia vomitoria. They extracted reserpine. Reserpine is used in the treatment of treatment of high blood pressure, hypertension. So in this manner, 25% of plant species are used in medication. We are using industrial products like fiber, resins, rubber, latex, tannins, silk, milk, honey, wax, shark green, dried skin of shark, used in polishing industries. So in this manner, we are using several industrial products. We obtained several products, industrial products from plants and animals. So it is a narrowly utilitarian argument. We utilized as a food or medicines or depends upon some industrial products extracted from biodiversity, the living organisms. Narrowly utilitarian argument. Now we discuss broadly utilitarian argument. Second point is broadly utilitarian argument. Broadly utilitarian argument. So you already know the biodiversity play or function in environmental services. Biodiversity is doing environmental services. Doing environmental services. For their work, we fail to fix the price tag, means we fail to fix the price. For example, tropical rainforest of Amazon. Tropical rainforest of Amazon every year releasing 20%. So the oxygen released from tropical rainforest of Amazon is 20% of total oxygen present in Earth atmosphere. That's why we considered tropical rainforest of Amazon as lungs of our planet. So tropical rainforest of Amazon, the oxygen released by tropical rainforest of Amazon is 20% of free oxygen available on the planet Earth or available on the atmosphere of Earth atmosphere. So that's why tropical rainforest of Amazon considered as the lungs of our planet. So for their function, we fail to fix the price. Similarly, bees, bumblebees, birds and bats pollinate the flowers. So for their service also we fail to fix the price. So if pollinators are absent, we fail to obtain fruits and seeds. So this is about broadly utilitarian argument. The biodiversity is performing some environmental functions or environmental service. For this, we fail to fix the price. For one is The tropical rainforest of Amazon, the oxygen released by tropical rainforest of Amazon is 20% of total free oxygen present in Earth atmosphere. Bees, bumblebees, birds and bats, so they pollinate the flowers. So for this purpose also we fail to fix the price tag. So without pollinator we fail to obtain fruits and seeds. We fail to obtain fruits and seeds. Similarly, aesthetic. So while walking through thick wood, we feel aesthetic sense, that is beauty. Similarly, while waking from the bed, if we hear the bulbul bird singing, so these are aesthetic aspect. Aesthetic means beauty. So broadly utilitarian argument. Now we discuss ethical role of biodiversity. Ethical means moral. Ethical role of biodiversity. Like human beings, other animal species and plant species evolved. So human activity should not cause extinction of any plant or animal species. That is the ethical role, moral role. Some plant and some animal species are not useful to mankind at this moment, but in future our future generation may utilize the plant and animal species. So that's why our role is we have to transfer the total bio legacy, all the plant and animal species to the future generation. For example, Alexander Fleming, you already know Alexander Fleming first time discover the first antibiotic, penicillin, from Penicillin notatum. If Penicillin notatum extinct before Alexander Fleming discover the antibiotic, till today no scientist may not discover the antibiotic. Similarly, before discover the malaria drug from Cinchona officinalis, if Cinchona officinalis plant is extinct, till today, every year several people die due to malaria. That's why what is ethical role? Ethical role is moral. So like human being, other animal species and plant species evolve. So human activity should not cause extinction of any plant or animal species. We transfer all the plant and animal species, means this biodiversity, to future generations. So that is the ethical role of biodiversity. Why we conserve biodiversity? We are benefited from the biodiversity. If biodiversity is more, so human beings easily survive on the planet Earth. We obtained several industrial products, our food also from the biodiversity. So now we discuss conservation of biodiversity, how we protect the biodiversity. Conservation of biodiversity. Biodiversity is conserved by two methods: in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. In situ conservation and ex situ conservation. In situ means on site, conservation of the plant and animal species in their natural habitat is known as in situ conservation. Conservation of plant and animal species away from their natural habitat is known as ex situ conservation. In situ conservation is the best method. Backup solution of in situ conservation is ex situ. Backup solution means support only. Mainly we conserve the plant and animal species by in situ conservation. In situ means on site. Conservation of the plant and animal species in their natural habitat. Ex situ conservation. Conservation away from their natural habitat is known as ex situ conservation. In situ conservation. For our convenience, we classified into national parks, biosphere reserves, sanctuaries, sacred groves, and biodiversity hotspots. Biodiversity hotspots. Ex situ conservation classified into zoological parks, botanical gardens, wildlife sanctuaries, in vitro culture, seed gene banks, gene banks, cryopreservation, ex situ conservation. Conservation away from their natural habitat is known as ex situ conservation. Zoological parks, botanical gardens, wildlife sanctuaries, in vitro culture, gene banks, cryopreservation, wildlife safaris, wildlife safaris. Okay, now we discuss in situ conservation. Conservation of the organisms in their natural habitat is known as in situ conservation. Some areas contain high degree of species richness. High degree of species richness. High degree of species richness, high degree of endemism, and at the same time threat with extinction from human beings. Reason is the biodiversity hotspot may be present near the agriculture lands, near the rivers. They may try to construct the dams or convert the biodiversity hotspot into backwater. What is biodiversity hotspot? The area, region, high degree of species richness, more number of species and more number of endemic species. Endemic species means the species unique to that particular area, known as endemism, high degree of endemism. Endemic species means unique to that particular area. For example, kiwi bird. Kiwi bird is unique to New Zealand. So like that, unique species of a particular area known as endemic species, and at the same time that region is a threat with extinction due to human activity, known as biodiversity hotspot. Biodiversity hotspots popularized by Norman Maier. Norman Maier popularized the term biodiversity hotspot. All over the world, 34 biodiversity hotspots. In India, 3 biodiversity hotspots. Indo-Burma, Western Ghats, Sri Lanka, Western Ghats, Sri Lanka. Third one, Himalaya. These are the 3 biodiversity hotspots present in India. So the total area of all 34 biodiversity hotspots less than 2% of world area, but they protect 30% of biodiversity. You already know nowadays acceleration of plant and animal species extinction. If we protect at least 34 biodiversity hotspots, we can conserve 30% of world biodiversity. Area wise, less than 2% of total land area, but they protect nearly 30% of biodiversity. So this is about biodiversity hotspots. Biodiversity hotspot means region with high degree of species richness, means more number of species are living in that area, and at the same time high degree of endemism, more number of unique species live in that area. At the same time, threat with extinction from human beings, means the human beings may try to convert that region into agriculture land or grassland or human dwellings for the construction of houses or construction of dams, or converted into backwater, support of backwater. So 34 biodiversity hotspots all over the world. The biodiversity hotspot was popularized by Norman Maier, scientist Norman Maier. In India, 3 biodiversity hotspots: Indo-Burma, Western Ghats, Sri Lanka, and Himalaya. Now we discuss national parks. National parks are 90, sanctuaries are 448, biosphere reserves are 18. In the textbook given 14. Why they published the book in 2006? After 2006, 4 more added to the existing list of biosphere reserves. So now 18 biosphere reserves. In the textbook given 14. National parks 19. What is national park? National park is a natural habitat. You already know in situ conservation means conservation of the organisms in their natural habitat. So national park is a natural habitat. Forest area, protection given to fauna and flora. Protection given to fauna and flora. Fauna means animal species, flora means plant species. Private ownership is not allowed. Government of India is the proprietor of the national parks, means private ownership not allowed in national parks. National park is a forest area, natural habitat. Private ownership is not allowed. People never own some land in national parks. So Indian government is so that means the national parks are under the control of Indian government only, property of Indian government only. So first national park, Jim Corbett National Park. Jim Corbett National Park is the first national park. Tigers are protected. in Jim Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand, located in Uttarakhand state, Uttarakhand. Next one, Kaziranga National Park. Kaziranga National Park, Assam. Kioledio Gana National Park. National Park, Rajasthan. So in Karnataka also several national parks. Bhadra National Park. So like that. So importance is first national park, Jim Corbett National Park, Uttarakhand. Kaziranga National Park, Assam. One-horned rhinoceros protected in Kaziranga. Kioledio Gana National Park. So unique character of national park, it is a forest area, natural habitat. Private ownership is not allowed. Both flora and fauna protected. Total national parks 90 in India. Next one, biosphere reserves. Biosphere reserves are 18. 8 reserve is Panna. Panna is the 18th biosphere reserve in Madhya Pradesh. 17th is Sesashalam Hills. So in Tirumala, that is the 17th biosphere reserve. Biosphere reserve contain 3 regions: core zone, buffer zone, manipulating zone. Core zone, buffer zone, manipulating zone. Core zone, human activity, no human activity allowed in core zone. Wild plant and animal species are present in core zone. No human activity is allowed. Buffer zone, scientists and research scholars are allowed. Means limited human activity in the buffer zone. Manipulating zone, the tribal people working in biosphere reserves, they construct the houses. So human activity is more in manipulating zone. The people who want to wish the wildlife are allowed in manipulating zone. Biosphere reserve is a minimum disturbed habitat. Minimum disturbed habitat converted into biosphere reserve. So protection given to abiotic and biotic factors. In national parks, protection given to only flora and fauna. So abiotic factors, biotic factors. 3 zones in which in situ conservation 3 zones are included. So 3 zones are the part of biosphere reserve: core zone, buffer zone, manipulating zone. No human activity, core zone. Limited human activity, buffer zone. So in buffer zone, scientists and research scholars are only allowed in buffer zone. That's why limited human activity. Manipulating zone, so more human activity. The tribal people working in the biosphere reserve construct the houses. The people who wish to observe the wild animals and wild plants are allowed only in manipulating zone. So more human activity in the manipulating zone. So this is about biosphere reserve. Next one is sanctuaries. Protection given to fauna only, means animal species only. Protection given to faunal species only. Fauna means animal species only. No protection to plant species. Private ownership is allowed. Some people have lands in sanctuaries. Private ownership is allowed. So the government allow such people, landlords, to collect the crop or collect the forest products. Sanctuaries, private ownership allowed. And national parks and other private ownership is not allowed. Moreover, protection given to fauna only. Total sanctuaries 448. So in Karnataka also several sanctuaries, Kaveri Sanctuary, Mookambika Sanctuary, Bhadra Sanctuary, Dindel Sanctuary. So in this manner, sanctuaries. So in sanctuaries, protection given. Similarly, Rangantittu Bird Sanctuary, also famous. So that is also in Karnataka. So fauna, sacred groves, a group of trees known as sacred groves. So all the groves are, so they different sacred groves belong to different religions. All trees in the sacred groves are protected. Sacred groves means a group of trees. They belong to a particular religion. All trees in sacred groves are protected. Kasi Jaintia. Kasi Jaintia sacred groves in Meghalaya. Meghalaya. Aravali. Sacred groves in Gujarat and Rajasthan. Gujarat and Rajasthan. Western Ghat. Western Ghat sacred groves in Karnataka, Maharashtra. Karnataka and Maharashtra. Karnataka and Maharashtra. Western Ghat. Kasi and Jaintia, Meghalaya. Aravali, Gujarat and Rajasthan. Western Ghat, Karnataka and Maharashtra. Karnataka and Maharashtra. Sarguja, Bastar, Chanda. Sarguja and Bastar in Chhattisgarh. Chanda, Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh. But in your textbook given Sarguja, Bastar, Chanda in Madhya Pradesh. In 2016, Chhattisgarh is not separated. So after 2016 only, Madhya Pradesh divided into 3 states. That's why now Sarguja, Bastar in Chhattisgarh. So follow the textbook. Sarguja, Bastar, Chanda are the sacred groves in Madhya Pradesh. So sacred groves means a group of trees. They belong to different religion. All trees are protected. So they may ask in multiple choice questions or in match the following. Kasi and Jaintia are the sacred groves in Meghalaya. Aravali, Gujarat and Rajasthan. Western Ghat, Karnataka and Maharashtra. Sarguja, Bastar, Chanda, Madhya Pradesh. Truly Sarguja and Bastar, Chhattisgarh. So for some plant species, Kasi and Jaintia of Meghalaya are the last refuges. For some threatened species and rare species, Kasi and Jaintia sacred groves are the last refuges in Meghalaya. So that is the only some plant species survive in sacred groves of Kasi and Jaintia. They are no more in other places. Last refuge, shelter for threatened and rare species. We discuss what are threatened or rare species after completion of conservation of biodiversity. So for threatened and rare species, Kasi and Jaintia of Meghalaya are the last refuges. Next one, excitive conservation. Conservation away from their natural habitat. They collect the different animal species and rare in zoological parks. Every state has one zoological park. Similarly, every state has one botanical garden. So they collect the different plants. So botanical garden means minimum 10,000 plant species. So they labeled, they give local name and scientific name of each and every. They display the local and scientific name in each and every botanical garden. So all these plants are not evolved in the same area. They collect these plant species from different regions. They are rare. So that's why away from their natural habitat, zoological park also they collect different animal species and rare in zoological park. Next one, wildlife safaris. You all know in zoological parks, so safari, elephant safari, lion safari, tiger safari. In that area, only members of one animal species are rearing. So the people who wish to observe the wild animals very closely, they go for ecotourism, wild safaris. Next one, in vitro culture. What is in vitro culture? In vitro culture means the shoot tips and thallus of threatened species are present in laboratory. By using thallus or shoot tips, they develop the new plant. They develop the plant species in large scale in a short period. Next one, gene banks, seed gene banks and field gene banks. Field gene banks means gardens. They rear a particular plant species in the form of garden. That is field gene bank. So seed gene banks, so they preserve the seeds of threatened plant species. And again, seed gene banks are of two types: orthodox seed gene banks, recalcitrant seed gene banks. Orthodox seed gene banks, they remove 97% of moisture and they can survive several hundreds of years. They remain viable. So in case of orthodox, if you try to remove the moisture, they destroy. For example, cocoa, coconut, jackfruit. Example for orthodox seed gene banks. So gene banks and in vitro culture mainly to conserve the plant species. Cryopreservation. So they preserve the embryos or gametes of threatened plant and animal species at minus 196 degrees Celsius by using nitrogen is known as cryopreservation. Zoological parks, botanical garden, wildlife sanctuaries. In vitro culture and gene banks mainly conserve the plant species. In vitro culture, tissue culture. So by using thallus or shoot tip, they develop the endangered plant species enormously, threatened plant species in large scale. Gene banks are two types: seed gene banks and field gene banks. Field gene bank means they rear the members of a particular species in the form of garden. So garden come under field gene bank. Seed gene banks are two types: orthodox seed gene banks, recalcitrant seed gene banks. Gene banks are of two types: seed gene banks, field gene banks. Seed gene banks again two types: orthodox seed gene banks, recalcitrant seed gene banks. Orthodox seeds means, so how they preserve orthodox seeds? They remove 97% moisture. In this manner they preserve the seeds. Orthodox seed gene banks. Recalcitrant seed gene banks, so if they remove moisture they spoil. Actually the prestigious organization CCMB, ICRISAT, they are maintain the seed gene banks. Next one is cryopreservation. Preservation of gametes and embryos of threatened plant and animal species at minus 196 degrees Celsius is known as cryopreservation. So conservation of biodiversity. Some organizations also protect the biodiversity. Indian government also protect the biodiversity with Wildlife Protection Act. Wildlife Protection Act. From 1972, Wildlife Protection Act is enacted since 1972. Similarly, Wildlife Protection Society, Wildlife Act 1972, Wildlife Protection Society, headquarters located at Dehradun. Similarly, Zoological Survey of India, Zoological Survey of India, headquarters located at Kolkata. These organizations also protect the biodiversity. Earth Summit, held at 1992, members of different countries assembled to protect the biodiversity, conserve the biodiversity in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So that summit is known as Earth Summit. World Summit, World Summit was held at Johannesburg in South Africa in 2002. 190 members of 190 countries assembled. So they accepted a protocol. Based on that protocol, so all the countries should prevent the decrease of biodiversity globally, regionally, locally. At global level, region level and local level, try to protect the biodiversity. So World Summit held at Johannesburg in 2002 in South Africa. Earth Summit was held in 1992 at Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. So this is about conservation of biodiversity. We discuss threatened species. Threatened species. Threatened species. International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources published the threatened species in red data books. In red data books. In red data books. So now we discuss the threatened species. Mainly they mentioned critically endangered. Critically endangered. Endangered. Vulnerable. Vulnerable species. What is critically endangered? Some plant and animal species going to extinct in the immediate, now only, today or tomorrow, going to extinct in the immediate. So going to extinct at present, known as critically endangered. For the survival, human help is required, known as critically endangered. Endangered. Plant and animal species going to extinct in the near future, not today, in the future, near future. Endangered species. Vulnerable species, plant and animal species going to extinct in the medium term future, not now, in future somewhere extinct, known as vulnerable. Near threatened. Near threatened means in future some plant and animal species become vulnerable. They are known as near threatened. Critically endangered means the plant and animal species going to extinct immediately, known as critically endangered. Human help is required for the survival of critically endangered. The species going to extinct in the near future. Vulnerable, the species going to extinct in the medium term future, not now, in future sometime. So vulnerable. Near threatened, in future they converted into vulnerable, known as near threatened. So International Union for Conservation of Natural and Nation and Natural Resources, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, published the threatened species, mainly threatened species, critically endangered, vulnerable. So they published the list of plant and animal species in red data books. What is a rare species? A rare species, a group of small population, uncommon in the habitats, so we can easily identify due to bright colors. So the predator easily engulfs the members of rare species. A small group of uncommon individuals. So rare species is a species contains small population and at the same time uncommon characters, not common. So we can easily distinguish. So the predator also easily distinguish and try to engulf. So such species are known as rare species. Rare species is a species containing a small group, a small population with uncommon characters. Rare species. For example, Himalayan brown bear. Himalayan brown bear is example for rare species. Himalaya snow area, but its color is brown, so it is easily, the predator easily identify the bear. Himalayan brown bear. So conservation of biodiversity, in situ conservation, ex situ conservation. In situ conservation, conservation of the organisms in their natural habitat. In situ conservation, national parks, biosphere reserve, sanctuaries, sacred groves and biodiversity hotspots. Biodiversity hotspots are the regions contain high degree of species richness, high degree of endemic species. Species richness means you already know, number of species per unit area. Endemic species mean unique species of that area, endemic species. At the same time, threat with extinction from human beings. Norman Meyer popularized the biodiversity hotspots. So 34 biodiversity hotspots in the world. Out of 34, India has 3 biodiversity hotspots, namely Indo-Burma, Western Ghats, Sri Lanka, Himalayan. The total land area of all biodiversity hotspots is less than 2%. But if we protect the biodiversity hotspots, we can protect the 30% biodiversity. So land area 2% only, biodiversity is 30%. Next one is national parks. National park is a forest area, natural habitat, protection given to both plant and animal species. Private ownership is not allowed. 90 national parks. Sanctuaries, 448 sanctuaries. Private ownership is allowed. Only animal species are protected. Protection given to faunal species only. Sanctuaries. So several sanctuaries, several national parks in Karnataka also. So Bhadra Sanctuary. Similarly, Dandel Sanctuary, Mokambika Sanctuary, Kaveri Sanctuary, Rangantittu Bird Sanctuary. So, different sanctuaries. First National Park, Jim Corbett National Park, Uttarakhand. Kaziranga National Park, Assam. In Jim Corbett National Parks, tigers are protected. In Kaziranga National Park, one-horned rhinoceros is protected. Similarly, Periyar Sanctuary, Periyar National Park, elephants are protected. Next one, sacred grove, a group of trees, not forest, a group of trees belong to a particular religion. All trees are protected in sacred groves. Kasi Jaintia, sacred groves in Meghalaya. Aravali sacred groves in Gujarat and Rajasthan. Western Ghat, sacred groves in Karnataka, Maharashtra. Similarly, Sarguja, Bastar, Chanda, Madhya Pradesh. Some rare species, for some rare species, Kasi Jaintia sacred groves of Meghalaya is the last refuges. Earth Summit was held at Rio de Janeiro in 1992. So, the members of different countries assembled during Earth Summit try to conserve the biodiversity. Again, they assembled in 2002 at Johannesburg in South Africa. So members of 190 countries assembled at Johannesburg and it called as World Summit. World Summit. So they have taken some actions to prevent the decrease of biodiversity globally, regionally and locally. Wildlife Act 1972 protect the biodiversity. Some organizations also protect the biodiversity. Wildlife Protection Society, headquarters Dehradun. Zoological Survey of India, headquarters Kolkata, also protect the biodiversity. So tomorrow I start evolution.